When I was young, I felt the world around me so intensely that I remember straying away from my family to hide my tears. I hid so I wouldn't be perceived as weak. I didn't know how to express my feelings as I did not understand them. Attempting to fit in would be a constant theme in my life, starting in childhood, where I would try to fit in with my brothers. This constant suppression of emotion would eventually manifest itself into a physical illness.
What's your name and what have you been diagnosed with?
My name is Etoile, and I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis originally whenever I was 15 years old, and upon later research, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. I was 15 whenever everything started. I had my main focus on my physical physique, exercising, dieting, and pretty much just looking the best that I could whenever I was that age. So passing blood was completely out of left field. I was very confused when it started to happen. One day, whenever I was actually rollerblading in my friend's kitchen making pancakes, I lifted my leg to pass gas as a joke, and blood began to drip down my leg. It was pretty graphic, but that's how it began. At this point, I was really afraid, but I did not want to face my fears and finding out what was wrong. I went to the school nurse, but that was about it, and she told me I should go to the doctor, but I never did. It got to the point where I was bleeding so profusely that I passed out on the toilet and I was not able to go to school. So my parents finally took me to the hospital, previously not even knowing that I had such great issues going on. They rushed me to the hospital on May 4th, 2014, and from there I would stay for 3 months. When I got to the hospital, they would proceed with plenty of tests to find out what it was that was plaguing my body. And I got 11 blood transfusions within the first week of being there. After failing to be able to repair whatever it was that was causing my body to bleed, they told my mom that I would have to get surgery and have a temporary colostomy bag for a year while the J-pouch that they constructed inside of me in place of my colon would heal. And me being incoherent, I was not a part of this decision-making process. Obviously, though, I would have made the decision that my mom made while I was really facing death in this moment. So I proceeded with the surgery and stayed in the hospital, where I would face many more complications and issues during this 3-month period. As you can imagine, this was quite a shift in my reality for my young self. Whereas before I was focused on pointless superficialities and my physical appearance, I was now having to face the reality that my body was failing me. And it really brought up a lot of questions for me that I had never thought that I would even begin to contemplate. Like, how am I living my life, and what is important, and why do I want to continue to live? Especially having previously taunted life and almost asked for death, being depressed as a youth. It's funny looking back on, and even now, realizing that the digestive and eliminative organs are synonymous with letting go and not holding on to anger and resentment and other emotions. I even notice now, whenever I have more pain than other times, what's on my mind really coincides with that pain. And back then, I was not able to let go. I had a lot of anger and resentment build up in myself, which At that time, I didn't see the issues leading to that until after. After those 3 months, I was finally discharged from the hospital, and upon getting home, I thought that all of my depression, all of my issues, mental issues, would be gone because I was finally back in a comfortable spot. I was soon to realize, though, that that was not the case, and I would have to face more issues, such as presenting myself in public with having moon face, as they call it, from the steroids, the prednisone, not being able to keep up with my friends, not being able to sleep in my own bed because of my depression and my trauma. I eventually would recognize that this was not just something that I could shrug off. It was going to be a lifelong journey that I would be facing. During the year leading up to my takedown surgery, I would struggle with finding my place and struggle with fighting this disease that I had as I tried to act like it wasn't affecting my life at all. I wasn't able to go back to school. I was terribly embarrassed of having a colostomy bag and having to empty it anywhere publicly. It definitely made me go into my shell a bit just before coming out and realizing that this was something that I was going to have to accept myself for. Still with the excitement that in a year I would get to have the takedown surgery and not deal with it anymore. That day rolled around and I had the surgery. I no longer had a colostomy bag, and just as whenever I left the hospital after the initial diagnosis in those 3 months, I thought that everything would be changed and lifted, but this was not the case. The lack of knowledge that I had back then eluded me to thinking that having the takedown surgery would help me to be better, to move on from this illness that was affecting my life so greatly. But after a few months, I realized that I wasn't getting any better. The medications weren't helping. I tried more medications, everything that the doctors recommended for me, I tried, but nothing seemed to help. I had complication after complication. I was always ending up back in the hospital. It was nice now to have friends by my side, but I wasn't able to carry on a normal life. I still hadn't been back to school, gotten a job, experienced relationships or anything that my friends were doing, and it made me feel pretty alone. During this time, when only my mother was by my side, I had plenty of time to reflect. Things slowed down all of a sudden. In order to cope, I kept off of social media and kept to my journals. Time seemed to be different there. This is around the time I was introduced to my holistic practitioner, and natural remedies, which would really help me to work towards getting truly better. While transitioning into a more plant-based diet, I would be very resistant to all of the things I was introduced to. I was used to eating pizza, bacon, grits, and eggs, even while I was in the hospital with the 24-hour room service that I had. So this was quite a shock to me to hear anything about eating just raw foods. I didn't know if I could trust it at first, but I had already tried everything in the opposite direction. So out of desperation, I inched my way in and really felt out what I was being taught. At first, heal-all tea, sprout, avocado, apple smoothies were disgusting to me, to be quite honest. But this was also because my chemistry was not aligning with what I was introducing to my body. At this time, that nutrition had never been introduced to my body, barely at all. All throughout my childhood even, I've been used to eating cereals and burgers and the all-American diet, the standard American diet. Sad. But as time went on, these things started to taste a little bit better, and I started to feel a little bit better along with it. Eventually, I would go completely plant-based with no dairy or animal products, and after that, completely raw on just fruits, vegetables, and herbs to help assist my body in the healing process. This would bring on a world of pain, as my body was filled with pharmaceuticals and toxicity, essentially, from how I was treating my body in the past. Eventually, I was able to get myself off of all pharmaceutical medications, and I felt the best I had felt in a very long time. This was a wonderful time. Although I was still having complications, I was still shitting my pants, to be quite honest, at night. So I eventually realized that something needed to change. One day I went in for a scope in Chapel Hill to find out what it was that was still issuing my body, and I found out that there was a fistula in the J-pouch that they constructed. This means that there was basically a hole forming in my gut, and it would be leaking into the rest of my body, causing me infections and just a lot of pain. That day that I expected to be there just for a simple scope, I ended up staying for a month to proceed with surgery to have the colostomy bag placed back again, which was one of the hardest decisions I've had to make in my life so far. I cried and cried. They actually gave me a little stoma to fit onto my stomach to see where it would be placed, and it brought me all back to the days that I had the colostomy bag in the past. But back then it was temporary, whereas now it would be permanent and irreversible. After making that decision, with the help of wonderful guides, nurses, and hospital consultants, I would be feeling so much better. Obviously, I was still maintaining and am still maintaining a plant-based diet. I'm still staying on my P's and Q's, taking my herbs every morning and every night. But I am off all pharmaceutical medications with all of the years of complications. The doctors told me I would never, ever be able to maintain my illness without taking any type of medication. I am happy to say that I've proved them wrong. I am now happily maintaining my illness with good nutrition, just taking care of my body and giving my body the love that it deserves. Anyone out there dealing with any ailment or illness, pain, physical or emotional or mental, just know that there is a greater reason for everything happening to you, and trust what is happening. Ask for the lesson in what you are going through. Things won't always work out. Things aren't always going to brighten up as soon as we ask for them. But feel your strength. Really feel your strength, and recognize that the things that you have endured attribute to your growth, and through adversity comes growth. No growth comes without struggle. Namaste.